Can hear you. You're on mute. Sorry for it.
Now you can hear me. And I said, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Global Virtual Design Sprint Community of Practice. This is going to be our 4th session, and this one's going to involve a Figma walkthrough. Now, these topics were generated by the community at large, which is anywhere from 200 to 300 practitioners in the Global Virtual Design Sprint. And the one that there was a series of tools that they wanted to walk through, and Figma was one of them. So over the course of the past 2 weeks, I think 2 or 3 weeks, I've been asking for folks to see if anyone would want to kind of take part in this and perhaps present on how they use Figma. So today, as if you haven't noticed by the 2-panel kind of setup here, I'm joined with Alexander Gurita. Did I pronounce it correctly, or is it pronounced supposed to be pronounced a particular way?
Well, that's what normal people actually pronounce it, but in my language is Gurica, which is a bit more complex, I would say, but don't worry about it. I'm used to both.
Alexander Gurita, yeah?
Yes.
So she's been using Figma for quite a while. I think she was part of the beta way back in like 2015. So she has extensive experience with the application. She's going to be walking through a series of different topics, perhaps doing some exercises depending on how many people we have. If nothing else, she's got me for an active audience. So I'm going to be working in the background. If you have questions as they come up, Alexander, would you want to wait till the end of your presentation, or would you want to kind of take them as they come?
I would say take them as they come, especially if they're based on the subject that I'm going to walk you through at that moment. But if there's anything besides that, we can also look at it at the end, if we have more time as well.
Okay, sounds good. And if any of you in Zoom would like to come over to the panelist side and kind of join us for the activities later on, you're more than welcome to do so. Otherwise, Alexandra, whenever you're ready, you can share your screen and we can get started.
Yes, I will actually do this. So the first point on my list was actually presentations. So you're going to notice that the presentation for today is actually done in Figma. So I'm not going to go into how I made that, but you're probably going to see it on the way. And first, probably who I am. A bit of what Robert said, I'm a UX designer myself. So I'm actually also a design thinking and design sprint facilitator. I've been using Figma as a tool in my day-to-day work, as a freelancer as well, but also in the facilitations. So I've been using it since it was in beta from 2015-16, so I know it all. Figma recently actually got this challenge up of who are you? What kind of Figma user are you? So just to point out to a couple of things, I was initially a Figma skeptic because I've been going across a lot of design tools in my career. First of all, I haven't seen many advantages, but over time, Figma got so much better that I think now it's a very powerful tool that you can use not only, for example, for UX design, product design, but also graphic designs or even presentation as well. In this tool stack of design, as I said, I've used Figma initially for creating high fidelity prototypes. But as I grew and as I was experimenting with it, I started using it even before. So defining them, using it for wireframing, or even just putting up some brainstorming notes over here and there. And later on for prototyping and even doing user testing. And now, for example, at my work, I use it for implementation as well. So I use it as a very good tool for doing the handoff for development. Recently, there was this design tool survey. I think the results got up this week, where Figma ended up being the first choice for users, for design users, for user flow, UI design, prototyping, design systems, and handoff and versioning as well. Just to tell you a little bit about what that means, I'm not going to touch about all the elements in here, but I think it's great because it has a lot of features for doing fast prototyping. And I will highlight here fast, but not complex. It's also good for collaboration because people that are using it, they don't need to have installed any type of software. So for example, it can be on Windows, on Mac, it doesn't matter, it's live, but it's indeed depending on being online. and many others, but especially design systems. It's also going to be a topic that I will be touching in the next slides, especially that it got some new features on that are very exciting, and some of the ones that I will actually show you at the end. So agenda for today is quite simple. I decided to combine some of the topics that I've recently said about, but it's going to be mostly focused on doing this for apps or for web design. So not too much touching on the graphics design part of it. For me, my first exercise in here is actually to get you people in Figma because it's such an interactive tool. I would love if you could join me. I think, Robert, you are the first one to join here, and I will also share the link in Zoom, or maybe you can share it if possible. And then we will go through to the next subjects. So everyone that will probably get the link will have one card. I will also try to fill it up myself. And let's see how many people will get in here. Otherwise, if there is anyone who would like to talk instead of going in Figma, that's also fine for me. No one yet. We're probably just going to wait a couple of minutes.
I haven't shared the link yet. That's why I was struggling to try to find the microphone. So hang on. I do have. I'm going to copy the link over into chat so everyone has it, so that if they want to, they can go ahead and fill those out. But if you could, I wanted to go back to a couple of the slides that you had, like the specific one about your history, just so I can ask you some follow-up questions about that. The one with the green on there.
Yes, over here.
Yep. So I'm trying to read because it's a. So what was it like being a member of the Figma beta? Like, how do you remember that far back where you first discovered it and thought, okay, I want to give this a shot? Did they basically give you access to all the tools they were using at the time, and what was the context for why you wanted to use it?
So just to give you a bit of a context of why I was using actually those sort of softwares in the past. So I was using Sketch. So that was my alternative back there. I was trying, every time I was trying to use Figma or other similar tools, I was using them for creating the high fidelity prototypes. So kind of trying to do a design system. When I got access to, I remember my first thought was, oh, this is another Sketch, something like this. And I think I even had this thought for a couple of years, maybe the first 2 years. But the reason why I kind of went back to it was that it was free. It was online. So for me, those two were some very good advantages. And after they started adding some features, if I could call them like that made me do the transition without even looking back. So some of them, just to mention, it's of course collaboration. I think you can even, I think it's so cool to see in here people joining, going to watch them. And something that I'm most excited now is the auto layout or those features that are getting close to the dev. As you also see here, I've highlighted also this one, designer should code. Maybe that's a bit too much said, but for me, it's important, for example, to have a good understanding of what coding means and what does it mean to develop an interface, so not only to design one.
Now, do you have any kind of philosophical approach to someone who uses something like Webflow, which is no code per se, but uses a lot of interface components, versus someone that may use Framework X, where you have kind of a combination of working under the hood as well as on the graphical side?
So coincidentally, I've actually worked before in a startup that does something very similar to Webflow. So I'm very familiar with the tool as well. I would say both work. It's up to you how much you would like to get involved in the field. But what I think it's important is to have an understanding from both sides. So I really appreciate those conversations when you can bridge this gap between design and code and see what practices you can bring from one field to the other. So I would say both are fine. It just depends on what you want to do. So for example, Webflow, it's really great at doing also fast prototyping without doing the code itself. So you don't need to have those hard skills.
And what do you say what do you mean when you say you overthink components? What does that mean? Do you kind of obsess over one part of your presentation, or is it part of like the flow from one state to the next if you're doing multiple screens? What did you mean by that?
So I think I have my own definition here. I don't know exactly what they meant. So those were actually predefined. I think I can actually just show you in one of the points that we're going to discuss later. I think it's easy to overthink components in terms of the variance of them. So let's say you have a button. You can overthink the fact that it can have multiple sizes, multiple colors, multiple options. For example, icon up front, icon after it, or both sides. So you can really go deep into that rabbit hole of defining your components with so many options. But
And
that might be
multiple
just
states.
me. In multiple states as well. Yeah, I didn't even cover that.
Does it rise when you put your mouse over it? Does it just change a slightly different color? Does it move other things in the on the page in terms of transparency and kind of make it so like everything comes together? Yeah, there's all these
So
different things
that sounds familiar to you, right?
I'm a coder as well, so I come from the same background you do. I used to do design pages, all sorts of things, and I use Webflow because it's just more convenient. But again, I can get into the CSS, or I can get into the JavaScript and do all of that if I need to.
Okay, well, that's good. So let's see how are people doing over here. I see that we have a couple of guests, so thanks for joining. Robert, you also forgot to write
I'm
in
busy
here.
talking to the guest. I haven't had a chance to really put my card in yet. Man, all right. Now I know who I'm dealing with. Hang on a second. Let me get in there before I get into any more trouble. I'll put my stuff in there.
So who else is in here? I see we still have someone that it's, I think, logging in. And who is this? Me? Yes, that's me. Okay. I'm curious to see what kind of audience we have. And hello, Appa. Hello, Omar. It's good. I learned how to use it, so don't worry about that. This is the high five, the Figma high five that I like to do.
So I have a question for you, Alexandra.
Yes.
When you say describe your day so far as an emoji, usually what I do is I put them into text. Like I accidentally got rid of my text block here. Hang on, see if I can go back a bit. It's going to let me to do it. There we go. So what I did is I basically got rid of the text, and I tried in doing a shortcut in Mac where I can basically put in any sort of, there we go. Now it works. Before it didn't for some reason.
Oh, that's cool. I actually have an extension for it. So please teach us your tricks.
Oh, with Mac, it's just a matter of hitting Control Command Space, and like in a sequence. And then what happens is it pops up the kind of emoji kind of window that shows you all the different ones you can choose, as well as the ones you've done recently.
Nice. That's really nice. Okay, so what do we have so far? I think I can start reading a little bit. So just started yesterday. Wow, nice. Welcome. Using for wireframing and prototyping. Yes, we will cover this and learn some of the best practices, trial and error. Yeah, that's also something that we do every day. I assume yes. I will just delete this. You like burritos? I like them too. They go well with tequila. Wireframing, mockups, and general design. Yeah, I also used EPD before.
When does tequila come into the creative process?
Sometimes very close to deadlines. I think that's the right moment.
Yeah. I'll leave it at that because
sketch. Nice. I'm curious if you're still, it seems like you're still using, Omar, XD and Sketch at the same time today. Not sure about that. And logos, podcasts, images. So probably a lot of graphical stuff. All right. Nice. I'm here to learn as well, so bear with me. Okay. Nice to meet you guys. I will show you that for the next couple of items, we'll have a combination of both a bit of a presentation and show you around, but also try out hands-on things. So feel free to join the link if you get here. So the next subject for us will be wireframing. I saw that you guys have it over there, and I'm actually curious to hear it also from you. How do you guys use it? Um, there are many ways to get here. So doing wireframing, as you already know in Figma, you can do it freestyle. So you can just use the shapes that you have over here, rectangles, lines. I think this is not something that people do it very often. What I think people use it more often is libraries and maybe even having their own kits. It's also something that I do myself. And the last two is actually using external parties to generate wireframe and then get it in here. For me, this is either the start of ideation and defining a product, or is the start of a design system, or even both. Can be very simple, but it can also be complicated. As Robert saw on the previous slide, you can overcomplicate it very easily. So I've listed up here the three main types of wireframing. Figma is the last one. I just want to briefly touch upon the first ones that I use. So those are some personal options that I'm using, just to see what are the differences from my point of view. So of course, sketching, everyone knows it. It's very fast, definitely free. You don't need any tech in here. But some of the disadvantages is that it can be very messy sometimes. And in the end, you still need to digitalize it. It's very convenient, but you would still have to get in Figma in the end if you want to get to a high fidelity prototype, if that's your option. The second one that I've also mentioned in the initial agenda is that I use Miro for that, and then I generate the high fidelity based on Miro. The reason why I do this is actually sometimes I have just very fast meetings with people where I try to generate ideas for me to have a base for my project. So I use Miro because it's very easy to use for people that are not familiar with design softwares, but are more familiar to those brainstorming like tools, as you also know it probably so far. So it's easy that it has a library, but some of the disadvantages that you definitely cannot just go over it is that are very restrictive. So you don't have the options to make it very personal. And in the end, it works. This is an example for an app that I was trying to map up in a workshop. So it looks good. You can put your ideas up, but from here on to go in Figma and do a high fidelity, you would have to start all over. So the last one, which is probably the most favorable and the reason why we are all here, is that Figma is really great at wireframing because first, you're not jumping between tools anymore. You have so many examples from the community, and I mean the Figma community itself, and on the internet, and it does bring consistency across your projects. There are also some downsides. As I previously mentioned, it can be difficult if you are having people around that are not used to design software. And also, if you would like to use libraries, that's actually a feature for the paid version. So you might have to try to find your way here, but it's super good for fast prototyping, and it's super good also for starting a design system. A few things to mention in here. I put up here an example from a library from the community that it's called the Wireframe kit. So just to show you what you can get if you were to use one of those, most of the times it contains components for a wireframe, but also the tokens. And I think here you can already get a glimpse of what a design system could look like because it contains the very tiny elements as text and color styles, but it can also be very complex. As we mentioned before, like buttons and so many variants for them, drop downs and so on. Something else that it's also nice is that you can use devices in here. And I'm not sure if you already know it, probably some of you do, but you can edit your frames depending on the device that you have. So this is very good, especially for prototyping, because it already has the sizes involved. When you make your wireframes and you want to do testing with it, you can just choose from here. And of course, you can also just write your own resolution if you want. But this is a very helpful feature because it already gives you an idea of how that could look like. And of course, it has not only mobile, but iPads, but also desktop as well. So just to show you around how that would work. Something that I thought about doing today is actually making a wireframe with you. So that would be our second exercise. I know maybe it's not that easy to get a glimpse of what it is, but I wanted to go through this with you. So I hope you guys can come here. I cannot call you, but I would like to try to make this wireframe that was originally done somewhere else in Figma. So for that, I prepared for you the device. And here on the right, you have assets, the ones that you've seen previously on the left, but now are here as options. So I would say to try to use them. How I would normally start, I would just, I've actually put instructions here just in case. I would just pick up the components and go on the right to make it look as close as possible to what we have here. So I would say try to start getting some of those in here and try to make it look as close as possible to that on the left, or just go wild as well. You don't have to make it look identical. But what I wanted to show you is how does a component look like as well, and play a little bit with the options that Figma gave you. So thinking of the size, customize it with icons. And if you don't find components for what you need, for example, for the tagline, you can anyway just make use of the elements that you have. So for example, text. And also look a little bit about the tokens that I've mentioned previously in here and try to use them as well in your wireframe.
So the contextual menu on the right-hand side tends to have a lot of options depending on what element you're selecting on your board.
Yes, exactly. So I would say, just to make a little bit of a wrap up, the left side of the interface is always kind of the guidance for you. So what are the layers you have in the page, the pages themselves, and the components, so the assets. So nothing more. And everything that is on the right, of course, you have 3 tabs. The first is for design, trying to customize the element you selected. This is only for prototyping. We're going to touch it on the next item. And the third one is inspect, which is mostly for development. So who's joining me in this exercise? Let's see who we have here. Okay, someone already started. Robert, I know you also didn't do this before, so maybe that would be fun for you as well. And meanwhile, for the people who are watching, I think I would just start to do it myself as well. And I will try to talk over it to do it again. Does that work? I think it's fine.
That works.
I'm not sure. If we have questions, can we read them somewhere? Let's see. How did you add the emoji? Okay, got it. I added my questions in here. Appa, I know that this was your second day of working with it, so if you have more questions, let me know. So let's.
There was one question about your preferences. I think it was Appa that put it in. She says, "Have you had experience with Mural for Wireframe? The advantages of using Miro over Mural."
I did, but just in the beginning. I think maybe I also have a personal preference for Miro because it has this feature embedded that it's called Wireframe. Not sure about Miro. Do you know anything about such a feature?
Mural, for the most part, is something where it's a copy-paste experience between those two applications. So if I want to bring anything into Mural, I basically group things in Figma, get them ready for export, and then just use the image and bring that into Mural. Then from there, I can edge things out, meaning I can kind of splice them or kind of change the image if I want to. But in terms of the portability, I haven't fooled around with anything like XML or anything like that.
All right. Maybe that would be actually another subject that we can touch upon in the future. I think Miro is indeed such a great tool as well. but it's better to use it in like state when you are not that advanced with the fidelity of your products or your prototypes, as I would call it.
So I have a question for you, Alexandra. I will be the user that goes, I don't know where I'm supposed to go. I see what you have on your screen, but I don't know how to get there from the presentation you had previously. How do I get to where you are?
You can click on my name over here at the top, and you would get just right where I am. Are you here? Yes, I see you.
Observing. And then all I have to do is just screen out, and there I am. Okay.
Yeah, that's really good. A really good question.
So Figma is one of those applications that uses an infinite screen then?
Actually, I found out that it's not unlimited, but it tricks you that it is.
And so the purpose of this exercise, I'm joining a little late, is that we're basically creating our own, we're taking the wireframe on the left and recreating it on the right, correct?
Correct, yes, exactly.
Okay.
Oh, I like this.
And knowing me, I'm checking to make sure everything's locked down before I start. Oh,
don't worry, I did the same.
Yeah.
Let's see what we do here. So I will talk a little bit over and I will come back. I hope that we can finish in 5 minutes because we have other things that we're gonna touch upon. But just for the people to understand what I'm doing, the ones that are watching, for now, I'm not using any components. So I'm just doing freestyle work myself, just to make it look quite similar. Here you have options for the buttons that we've seen previously, just to make a little bit of a zoom out. Here are all the options that you're going to see, and I will show you in the next phase how you can make one of those as well. So the reason why I said it's really good to use libraries is that they already give you those options. So you don't have to build them yourself. But if you were to do it your own, you have to go through all the process and start working on them, defining your own components, the sizes, option state, as you also mentioned, Robert. So that's really time consuming, and it's not the best option because you can just use something that already looks great, that someone used it already in the past and is willing to share it with you. And of course, you can even buy those.
You probably would only want to go down the road of making your own components if you're later on in the design process, where you kind of establish where elements are in the interface. You have an idea of both the information architecture and the content that's required on each page. And you're starting to like tack things down, so to speak, or starting to solidify certain elements on the page that are either client approved or that seem to have consensus, outside of like something happening without your knowledge, where you have to kind of change things up.
Exactly. So why I think it's great is that you can afterwards just take the library and edit it in something that it's more high fidelity. It's not something that I normally do it. I actually sometimes just start from the beginning, but it's an option as well. So let's see how we are doing. You ready for lifetime adventure?
My interface is woefully inadequate, so you don't really need to concentrate on it too much. I put one thing.
Oh, but I like when people get creative with the fonts. This is actually an option that I've seen it in Figma that gives you the possibility to use all the fonts from Google Fonts, and you don't need to install them yourself. And this is great. It's really great when you're trying to do design variations.
It's starting to become more and more the standard. People just assume that those fonts are going to be universal after a while, depending on what kind of web interface you're working with. It's definitely in Figma, you have a wide variety. I still think that there's opportunity to better represent what those fonts look like rather than like a stacked list. But for the most part, it's still serviceable.
Exactly.
So maybe one thing that could help is if you teach the method of cutting and pasting or duplicating in an interface, like basically taking a couple of elements and selecting them and then duplicating them.
So I would actually I'm going to go in here. Something that I do, and this is a shortcut. I'm not sure how it's in Windows because I'm on Mac, but just maybe I think it's Alt or Option. So whenever I click and hit Option or Alt on Windows at the same time, I'm actually, oops, okay, of course, duplicating the element myself. And that's very easy. So you don't have to copy and paste again, but instead you're just doing one option. And you have it in here. You can switch. It's a new element.
If you
Of
hit
course.
Control D, if you hit Control D, you actually duplicate the element that you selected, but it stays in place. So it's not like
Exactly.
when you hold down Option and you can drag it. It's where it's kind of like if you want to keep it with its own elements, and hopefully you've grouped them, because if you select a bunch of them and duplicate them, then you unclick, it's going to be, you're going to hope that Control Z gets rid of everything.
Maybe this is actually another thing that it's important to see. So let's say you have those two elements. Not sure if everyone knows how to group them. That's not a good point. First, you can, of course, just click right and hit group selection. It's the same for click right, ungroup. So then you can take them apart again. Or just use, again, the shortcut, which is Command G or Control G, I think, for Windows.
Yeah. Usually keyboard shortcuts are a good indicator of how advanced or how comfortable you are with the application. If you know a few, then you're probably good enough to be dangerous. If you know at least 10 of them, then you're probably in the realm of knowing the application pretty well.
I know there are also many others that I didn't try them myself. I think it's also because I'm doing, oh, someone changed the background. Who was that?
What are you talking
That
about?
was not me, right? Someone changed
No?
the background of the, okay, went it back.
No,
Of the
that I'm
page.
not sure of. Oh, you're talking about the page name?
The page background color, but now it's back.
Oh,
So
okay.
let's
No,
see
I
how
didn't do that.
everyone is doing. I see Appa, it's very far. I'm curious if she could also change those elements, because I see they are the same. But there is a video one as well. But that looks quite accurate. I'm happy to see it. We are in here. Kimberly is also doing quite well. More. Oh, I really like this one. What font is this? I might use it in the future. Really nice. Yeah, I don't know what to do with those that don't fit. You can just make them smaller for the text. So Robert, how do you feel?
I'm still trying to figure out where you pull down assets. I don't know where that is in the interface. Can you show me again where you find those?
Yes, that was exactly what I was waiting for. So is this what you see on the left side of the screen? Do you see the layer?
No, I do not. So if I want to bring up that panel, what do I do?
You don't see it at all. What do you have on the left side?
On the left side, I have 0. I don't have anything on the left. I have, basically, it's a clear dropdown. Basically, it's just the Figma like menus on the left. So I've disabled the menu on the left so that it can get more screen space to kind of design. And the one thing I have is the contextual menu that you're displaying on the right-hand side. But I have disabled or made it so that the view on the left is not being shown.
That's actually very interesting. I'm not sure. I never actually encountered this myself, but let's try like this. I gave you a component over here. You see it at the top, right?
Wow, Figma's got AR now. Oh no, it's got machine learning, so it knows. Okay.
I will show you a trick. So you can use this as a button, but now try to duplicate it and we'll switch from there to a drop down. And I will show you how.
So I'm just duplicated just like that.
If you click, if you right click on it, you would have, or I'm just going to click on the other one. You would have on your right, under the size, the icon of the symbol of the component and somewhere within button. Do you see that?
Yep.
Okay, if you open that drop down, you would start seeing a menu of your component. So it's basically the same thing on the left, and you would just have to go back and select another one. You go back from the list. Yay, nice. So you could also do this for all the others.
Okay, perfect. So to basically recap, basically selecting the component, going into the dropdown that you had mentioned where it says button, going back and swapping out the instance to something else, either a dropdown or a placeholder. Once I select that, then it'll basically change the component that I have selected into a different framework or a different kind of I'd say some applications say symbols, like different symbols, but
Exactly.
they could be different groups of components, or
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
a different component. Okay.
This feature that we went through, let's call it feature, but it's actually just an option that Figma provides you. It's especially useful, for example, when you have multiple types of components that are quite similar. So let's say you have a drop down, but you also have a search component that looks very similar as well. So you can just go back and select from one that is in there, and most of the options will be unchanged. So what do we have in the chat? How can I identify you are working on? Yes, there is a link. I will copy paste it again. Get it here. Chatboard. Oh, okay. So got it. Okay, looking for a finger here. I'm curious if you guys have any other questions. Yeah.
I do. If I change the text or some component, if I change the text type in a particular component, does it change that for all components, or is it only just for that instance that I put on my interface?
So for now, that would be only for your instance that you are putting on the interface. That's a very good question. So Figma operates in a way that it has a master component. So that helps you when you want to make a change. That's very helpful, especially for projects that are in there for a long period of time, because you can just do an edit and it will change in all the instances. So let's say if I want to, let's do this actually. I think that's going to be fun. For me, the master components are over here in this list. So let's say I want to change the color of it. Let me see if I can do this. Did it change for everyone? Yes. It also changed for you.
So on that particular palette you just shown, that lists the master components that all of the other ones kind of are children for. That basically that influences all the different designs everywhere else.
For now, this is for example, you could also just change it from here, but that doesn't influence the others. But this is the color. So let's say the color style. So I made this previously myself. We can actually just add a new one just to show you how that works. Let's make this more exciting. Let's make it red. Maybe that's not that exciting, but just for the sake of the exercise, you can add it by, no, sorry, I always do this, by clicking on the color styles, which are here, and then adding a new one and name this font color or font color. So now that we added in here, you can delete this one and it's in your style and you can use it across all your product. I think we have another question.
And thank you for showing that. And Appa also had a question about how you change the text inside either the buttons or the drop downs. And that's an easy one. That's basically making sure that down in the upper left-hand side under the move tool, like it's the second icon from the top, you want to make sure that you have move selected, or you can just type in V on your keyboard. And once you have that kind of cursor available, you just double click on the text itself. And it should allow you to edit as long as it's in blue. And that's usually how you can get to each of those components.
Exactly. And something else that it's nice, it's not really a shortcut, but more like a behavior, I would say, is that when you are in multiple groups, so let's say we are in here, you can just click Command and click, and you get through the layers and through the groups. So you can select, instead of selecting the group, you select an element from the group. So you could, for example, reach easier the text. So I saw we got a new message. It's the same link. Doesn't work. Should work.
It should work. Alyssa, let us know if you're still having issues with that.
Okay, so I see we got videos in here. So people got quite far already.
Okay.
So how do you feel about getting to the next item? We are also getting to be more advanced as we go.
I do have one quick question though. Yes. I've noticed that in your exercises that you've done here, you've asked us to kind of design beyond the border to the right, so that some of those boxes are kind of going past the the black border that's on the wireframe on the left. So you can see that the example that you've given here, there are some 3 boxes that are kind of extended there. Is there a purpose for why you've done this?
Well, you can mask them, but I just didn't want to go into that functionality. But actually what you would do is to get the device, either use it as a frame or use it as a mask, and then everything that you would design within the borders will get inside. I just wanted to put it up so you see the components better. That was the only reason.
So it's to showcase the information architecture in the way that it extends beyond a certain way to suggest through Figma that there's a bit of scrolling, or there's a bit of horizontal kind of extension of different content.
Yes, but for prototyping, you can keep it within the frame, and then scrolling would happen automatically. So you don't have to show it, but you would have to have it in there. But for the purpose of just displaying the items, I think it's also good to leave it out. Okay. So you can anytime just go back to those afterwards. I will leave this link open, so don't worry about it. But now that you got a glimpse of what a design system looks like, because that was actually just the beginning of it, let's talk a little bit about how it's like working with a design system in Figma. So I know that there was a question in the group of what are the pros and cons. And I actually was thinking to make a list of it because I never thought about it. I'm just using it myself, but I've encountered some situations myself. So that was a good exercise also for myself. So this is from my own experience. If you also have ideas or things to touch upon, please write them down. I'm curious also to hear your experiences if you worked with design systems already. But for me, just to name a couple of the pros is first, some of the things you've noticed as well is that it works for very simple elements, but also for very complex ones. For the complex ones, you can work with Variance. You also have a master component, as Robert said, so you can just do the changes, the edits in one place, and it will automatically be changed in all components. They also have the auto layout now in place. I will get back to that in a moment. We're going to have a new exercise about that. It's close to dev language, so it's easier to do the handoff now, and I think it's the only software that it gets as close to that as possible. Collaboration it's also possible. So if you are working on a design system, you don't have to do it all yourself. It can be multiple people. I'm currently working in a design system with 30 more people in it. So believe me, that's a very big one. And of course, you have libraries. So libraries are easy and a quick way to use an existing design system in your project, so you don't have to build it your own. However, complexity also comes with some cons. So one of them would be the naming conventions. And I will also show you a little bit of an example in a moment. Performance might also be an issue for complex design systems. So as I said, at work, we have a design system that has to work for 16 products, and that's a lot. And sometimes we get performance issues and we have too many layers, too many components. We have to refresh or we have to split files. But for example, for any app or a simple web app, mobile app, or a website, you won't have any problems. It's easy to use. I would say if you compare the action of creating a design system and using a design system, it's definitely easier to use it. To create it, it requires some sort of skills. So you have to have a little bit more experience or watch tutorials. It's not as straightforward as it would be, as it should be actually. And as I've mentioned, the new auto layout, it's very close to the dev language. So people who don't have those knowledge, so the coding language, they're not familiar with it, it might be a bit difficult. They had a previous option before. So I think they just updated this auto layout feature this month or last month. So previously it was closer to the design language, I would say, but I will also show you in a moment how that works. And yeah, some libraries are paid. This is also something. They have to make their money out of something.
If I could ask, when would you normally use variance? What are some situations where you would kind of employ variance in your work?
I think the moment when you want to make your prototype as close or as to increase the fidelity in it. So if you would like to showcase all the states that are possible and cover all the edge cases in your app, So for example, it's going to be easier for development to get to get answers for edge cases, or even for testing. That could also be another option. For A/B testing, you would like to have multiple options so you could try them in your prototypes. I would say those two are the most common use cases.
And given your perspective on pros and cons, one last question, then I'll let you go.
Yeah.
Where do you see Figma kind of evolving? How do you see the product kind of evolving into 2021?
That's a good question. I've seen it. I've definitely seen it evolving in the design system features. So they are really trying to work a lot in this. And I think what I see now is trying to make one medium for both designers and developers. Definitely they made a lot of progress comparing to the previous years, as if we take beta, for example, or even 2 years ago. What I'm also curious is to see them evolving, for example, also in prototyping. I've seen progress in there in the past year, but for example, in the last year, I haven't seen much. So I think they're concentrating a lot on design system, and this is also such a hype topic nowadays that everyone keeps asking for. So they are probably trying to be the best tool for design systems in 2021.
Okay. I'm done. No more questions. We're good.
No worries. You can ask them. Feel free to ask them. So I want to actually just exemplify a little bit on the pros and cons. As I said, OnePlus, it's of course, it's easy to do simple things for design systems. So it's easy to put tokens, color tokens or text tokens, the ones that you've also tried yourself, and you see also the setting here. But it's also an option to do complex options. So button can be one variant, but you could also have components that could be drop downs or lists, and they have multiple states, or they have multiple items in there that they can appear or disappear at certain times. So that's a pro, definitely something that we give them a like. However, this is the error that I told you about. You could get this when you reach thousands of layers, and believe me, it's easy to get there, and it's easy to reach that moment. Oh, I seen an error. Wait.
Speaking of running out of memory, you're running out of power.
Okay, not anymore, I hope. If I do, how does it? Okay. Yes, I'm good.
Yeah, you're good.
And the second one is the one that you've asked me. Another plus is definitely variance. So that helps you get to a state from a state to another very fast. But that also comes up with complexity. So you see this over here. This is how it's translated in terms of the language. So when you go into naming conventions, the fact that it allows you to create multiple options, that also comes up with the consequence of having them named like that. So that's not going to be so easy if you're going to look in the layering panel, but it's easier if you work with them from assets. Although when you have like hundreds of components, that's also going to be a bit difficult. So the search is not as usable as it should be. And the last one that I think I'm the most excited, it's auto layout. So as I mentioned previously, that this is a new feature, or yeah, relatively new comparing to the other ones, that you can easily get from a component like this to this in maybe like 3 steps. And what's nicer about it, it's that it can do the changes without you even touching this, but just working from the panel. So just I didn't exemplify how that works. Auto layout is always here on the right. And it works as following. It allows you to align items on horizontally, also vertically. Currently, this is horizontally. It allows you to place spacing between items. Let me show you over here. So those items have 5 pixels, but you can just easily make it 20. So it kind of mimics the coding language over here already. And the next one would be the padding. So they even use the same word. I think everyone already knows what it means, but maybe this is not the best, but it creates a margin of pixels around the items.
Again, if you have If you have questions for Alexandra, make sure that you put those in the Q&A on the Zoom side. I know that I haven't been promoting that as much beyond in the very beginning, but also on YouTube, if you do have comments, you don't have to wait till Alexandra's done. You can port those in, and then when there's moments where she pauses or goes to a different section, I can ask her really fast.
Yes. And the last item that got introduced, again, you see here the padding, and you can edit it. Or let me show you a little quick. Or margin sometimes depends on the type of the component. But what's nicer is that it identifies the element and it moves them around. So for the ones who are familiar with the coding language, this acts as a container that it's actually a flex container. So all the elements inside are becoming more flexible, as I would call it. In the last option, it's again another, I would say, coding related one, a bit edited. So it gives you the option to put space between your elements. So for me, my elements that get space is the button and this group over here. What would happen if I would ungroup it? Just to show you, is that all three elements now will get space between. So the same amount of space will get in between those three elements. If I would go back and I would say pack them, they won't have any space. So I would have to put it manually myself, or maybe make it bigger. But that doesn't mean that it's equally reverted in the amount of space that I have in here. And the reason why this is useful is because if I want to make this component larger, the elements stay in place and the space will keep increasing without me doing anything. So it automatically, I would say, yeah, it just automatically becomes using those features over here.
So those presets basically either condense or expand the elements that you put in a particular space, and then as you expand or contract those, if you have move kind of selected, then they basically expand and contract with that bounding border that you have.
Exactly, that's exactly what I mean, and it's the same also for this. So depending on all the elements you have, they work for the bounding boxes that you have. Just to give you a quick comparison, because maybe that just might look for you that it's normal. It's just the way it should work. I will take this component out and I will take out the auto layout. So I will take it out from everywhere and I will just have regular groups, right? So at this moment, everything becomes again absolute. So if I enlarge the bounding box, there is no difference. They will stay in the place where they are and I would have to move them manually one by one. So there is no relationship between the elements at all. So for example, if I would like to put them all in the middle, I would have to use the options of doing this manually. Hope this gives you a bit of a glance of why that's better. So as I mentioned previously, it's very close to the dev language, so it might be difficult for people that are not familiar with it, but I think it's, again, also an opportunity for people to learn it and bridge this gap. So another exercise. This might be a bit more complex. So I'm looking forward for the people to come in here and please ask questions. But if you do this, you are really good to go. You can make your own design system, and I'm pretty sure you can work with elements as well. What I would like you to do is to make your own component with variance. So if we go back here, I'll also put again spaces for you. Yay, I like people who are excited. So you can create your own button. And button for me would mean either just a rectangle with text as a group, or you can also just use this one here. So you can copy and paste or alt and click as we showed you before. And what I would like you to do is to create 3 variations of it. So in here, I've actually just changed the size. You can change whatever you want. It can be the color, it can be the text, it can be the size, or it can even be a combination. And by the time we do this, I'm actually going to show you how that's going to work. So let's say I'm making this and I'm making one that it's even bigger. By the time we do this, you select those three. You can select them in here, or you can use the layer panel. We will go up here and we will create multiple components. So what we're going to have, I will quickly name mine. Please also name the layer where you're going to be in, because that will help you afterwards. But I'm going to help you out with that. The moment you will click create multiple components, it will be possible, okay, 1 second, and combine it as variants. I will go back to that. You will be able to access it from here. That's Omar. Omar went a bit fast. Okay,
Omar learns quickly.
Okay, let's see what we have over here. So how is everyone doing? Combine it as variants and use them in a component. So the next step would be just to try it out, have fun and use a component and try this component that you created out. So let's see the state of everyone. I see that someone needs here to, someone deleted that, but I will put it back. Okay, Omar, so what do you have here, Omar? Components, Omar. Okay, nice. Maybe what you can do is to create variants. So yes, let's see. Together, components Omar, something gets wrong. Oh, I think you selected all of them together. No, yes.
Now, if it's easier if it's easier for you, Omar, you can actually come to the panelist side, so you can actually talk through at the same time that you're engaging. So it's up to you if you'd like to do that. Otherwise, you can stay on the attendee side. Either way, let me know.
I'm gonna try to briefly explain what went differently. So instead of hitting the create multiple components, you hit create components. So I would say do it again. And you can ignore that. I hope he heard me. He did, right?
I think so.
But don't try to use the same ones because they are already components, so that's not going to work. Good. Okay, so what do we have over here? Let's see. Yes, I also see more over here. That one is really big.
And Appa says that she has to go to a work call. She's going to watch the rest on YouTube later, and she wants to know if she can have access to this file later.
Yes, you all will. So I'm not going to block it. And I'm even thinking to put it up for community so you can also access it later on. All right, Omar. So now that you have those, select each of them, go to components. Okay, I cannot do it myself. And hit up, create multiple components. I'm going to do it again. Also, for me, someone stole my component. Let's see, did it work? Yes, it did. Awesome. So now on the right, I will click again for those to create multiple variants. You have this button, combine as variants, and you can give a description for the options you made. So it can be size, it can be color. I think in your case, it's size. And the moment you name that as a variant, it will appear. Yes, exactly. It will appear up here. So yours is this one. It even gets highlighted, called some button. So everyone can really use it. So I see we have a really big button, a skinny button, and a regular button. Yay! That went nicely. Awesome. And the extra is to try to use it maybe in some cards. I'm sorry, Omar, but you are the only ones who's left here, so I will use it.
Well, I'm also here, but I'm getting a font conflict with Kokatif. That means it's asking me to replace the font with something local. So I would put my name in, but I can't. But that's okay.
All right, sorry for that. I get it. Maybe I can name it.
I'm just not worthy enough. Neater.
And those components up here are just easy to use because they are already using auto layout. So it's easier for you to, for example, just play. Okay, this is very big, sorry. Just replace an option over here and use it differently. So go back to this one, for example, use another variant. Maybe this is better. And just place it inside and give it a play. Okay, so Robert, how does it go? You are now in the state.
Well, I've created 3 different buttons,
multiple
and now I'm just looking for the variant component that you were talking about. Do I look at, when I'm looking at it on the right, do I look for something in particular? Because I do the sub selection, and I'm looking for something to do there, but I don't.
I think you are using a component already. So let's see. Can you try to do it again? Can you try to do it again? Let's do it again.
Just use my own?
And
create my own? Okay.
No, you can use the previous ones. I will go back. So, okay, let me detach them. I will detach them as components and try to make them components again.
Whoa, how did I do that?
Don't know, okay, I want to know.
No, I had the wrong tool selected. I think it went to line, and then I hit something that was some sort of component. It was weird. Okay. And this, I don't know why I'm doing 3 stooges, but I'm just am. Okay, so I'm selecting all 3 of these components here.
Yes. And now,
right click doesn't have the context, so it doesn't have the menu that I need. So if I'm looking
you have to go on the top and click again for create component. So we are back in this step right now. Do you have that?
Let me take a look at your screen real fast. One more time. Oh, up there, I see. Yep.
Yes.
Got it. So right in the middle is we're saying create component, and then that'll combine all 3 of those. I see. Yep.
Yes. And now on the right, you should have the option of combine as variants. Do you see that?
No. Would it help if I shared my screen really fast so you can see what I'm seeing?
That would work, yes.
As long as it doesn't like cramp your
style.
style.
I see. I know. Okay, we can go back again. Sorry. I know what happened. So okay. I'm gonna again detach. So what you would have to do, what happened over here? Okay, what you would have to do is to select them again. And if you look at my screen, select the second option, which is create multiple components.
Okay. If only I followed directions and make things a lot easier.
Don't worry. People didn't say that this has to be easier, you know? So that's okay. I think now you might get what I mentioned in the cons. So you know that I've said it's easier to use it instead of creating it, because that takes a lot of steps. Also thinking, let's see how you did.
So I'm going to have to figure out how to get that left contextual menu in, because I still don't see it. I think that's key to kind of understanding how you work through things. I think it's basically a view, and I have to go to layers or panels and then open layers panel. Yep, that was it.
Yep.
So for reference, it's view. On the far left side, it's view. Then you go down to panels, which is down maybe like 12 items down, about that.
I'm also showing it on my screen.
Okay. And also, oops, that's not the one I wanted. Let me go back to where I was. Oh, I can't duplicate it. Okay, I'll do it later. All right, back to what you were talking about.
Okay. So the moment you have variants, I think, I'm not sure if Omar could start already using it, but I will just show it real quick. This is optional, so you don't have to do it, but just to show you an overview, about an example. Okay, this is very big right now, but maybe this is not good. I will use, how is this? Okay, I would use the skinny button. The moment you have this one, you can easily just place it in any auto layout thing. So for example, we have this one and you can start playing with it, or you can just introduce it in other options. Feel free to also play with it. You don't have to do it now. I also just wanted to give you this option if you have more time or if you just want to play around. Those are some components made by me that already contain that, so you can put your variants in there and just enjoy it. Or you can also just use the options over here. Something to notice though, for the people who are watching, the moment we start creating components on different pages, so for us, we have those following pages, the components will get first the name of the page and then the name of the component. It will show as a breadcrumb. All right, so I would say if people could already do it, I will let you guys enjoy the fun for later. And I will try to jump to the next subject, which won't involve any exercises anymore, just to make sure we're gonna finish this in time. So we can then all just jump off for the other activities. So because this is called prototyping, I've actually made a presentation. So you guys can see the animations themselves and also see how it looks like. So prototyping. Prototyping, Figma as a prototyping tool, comparing to others, it's very easy to use for simple interactions. So for people who are maybe more experienced in other tools as Principle, InVision, Framer, it gets complex and it gives you more control when you use those. But Figma is really great if you want to just validate, an idea, just try out an interaction that it's simple for your product, and it's good at getting feedback. To get the best out of it, you can use the Smart Animate. I will show you that in a moment. And also has those features to do the scrolling, the hover effects. And, I've mentioned before that it can show you that you can use prototyping on different devices. So that's easy when you want to do prototyping for your smartphone, or you just want to hand out a testing device to someone and you use Figma for it. As I said, you have multiple frames for it, and you can even customize it yourself. The way it works, it's quite simple. You create the frames. Frames are the ones that we all worked on already, and then you connect them to a line. It's very straightforward. The only thing you would have to do is to get on the second tab of prototyping and not on the design. All the interactions have triggers. So triggers would mean that the moment the user does something, an action will happen or a change will happen. For triggers in Figma are not so many, but I think they are enough for you to do any sort of an interaction you want. The ones that are the most used are on click, like even the one that I'm using right now was a click, but you can also have hover, drag, and those ones which are mostly used for animations. Another one that it's very useful, it's after delay. So you could say that you want something to happen after 5 seconds, so you don't have to touch anything. All the things that you see here might also be familiar for users who are using Adobe XD, just as I mentioned. And as I said, triggers also help you do something. So the moment you click on it, you can either just navigate to the next frame. It can also open an overlay that's very useful for models. You can scroll to a certain page or a certain part of your page. You can go back, or you can even open a link. So that will simulate really good real life situations. Oh, wow, that's very delightful. Animations, I don't use it that much myself, but that's easy when you want to simulate transitions, or again, when you are doing A/B testing and you want to make sure that your user won't get distracted by the fact that it's not a real, let's say, website or app. And again, transition, what's a subject that it's very hype when it's about Figma is that it has Smart Animate. So Smart Animate, it means that it does automatically some sort of animations that might look very complex, like for example, this one, but actually behind there is not so much of work. So it does the animation automatically, but all you would have to do is to use naming conventions. So for example, you would have to use the same name for the state when the house is purple and the same name for the house in black. So then it would automatically know you are referring to that object. I won't I won't show you specifically how that works. I would say if you want to go into Smart Animate, start with some tutorials. It does require some exercise in the beginning, but just to give you some quick ideas of how or what are the possibilities, the animation, Smart Animation basic concepts are either to work with positioning, um, and that could imply also just moving from one place to another, rotate it, scale it, change colors. This is also useful when you are doing hover effects, same for rounded and opacity. Okay, I told you that we're not going to do an exercise, although I wished we did, but that would take some time. But what I want to show you is how is that actually looking like for some simple animations of those. So I put up here 3 types. One is very simple. This is also, by the way, a mobile look, but we are all looking on a desktop, so you're not going to see it as a mobile, so sorry for that. So first, page transition. I'm also going to go to show you at the same time how it looks in Figma. You have those cursors, but a page transition would eventually mean that I've connected at click to navigate to a certain page. So how does that look? Very simple, no animation whatsoever. You have scroll because there is a lot of content in there. The way that looks, it's like this. It's hidden under the frame, so you don't see it, but it's in there. And another navigation is to go back. As we go at the bottom, we get more complex. So let's say you have a list of people and you want to have a model the moment you click add on it. How is that going to look? Over the file behind, you get a model, you click confirm, and that disappears back again. That also had a kind of a quick animation. So comparing to the previous one, in here, you would keep the original frame, but you would just add what goes over the top. So it's a bit more complex indeed. So that's why I said you would probably just need to look for some tutorials so you don't have to do it yourself, but just so you see what's possible. And the smart animation, although it sounds maybe very complex, you can do really complex things. The ones that I use it more often is to simulate, as I said, the native behavior. So here, what I did was to use drag. So as you see, I'm using the mouse for now, but this would normally happen on a mobile. And I can just switch between tabs. And what was smart about it, it's not only that, but it's this loading state that it was done instantly. So how does that look? It's like this. You would have, and I would like you guys to have a look a little bit at the naming. You would have the object in the same position named the same. Although it's a different element, if it's named the same, then they would know how to recognize it, and then the animation will happen smoothly. It's the same as I do it also with my presentation. I actually used smart animation for some of them. All right. Not gonna go more into that. In the past minutes, I want to just touch upon a few other things that are more, I would say, a bit extra. So all of the things you've seen about wireframing, design system, and prototyping are very much related to the work you do, maybe as a UX designer, as a UI designer. So they are very specific to that. But I would also like to show you some things that maybe are not that much discussed, but I would say they are very helpful. So in Figma, you have show version. So that would mean that I can actually just show you here that I would see all the important actions that happen in the file. So anytime I would like to go back to a version, so let's say I forgot something or I just did a mistake, I would have it here. And I would say that's a very powerful feature to have, especially because it's online. And it's very good when you work in groups. The second one, and I've touched a little bit on that, is the inspect tab. So we have design that we used a lot, prototype, and the third one is inspect. And this is especially useful when you are handing off your designs. At this moment, you can already see for this specific button the options, so the variants, so to call them, width, height, and radius even. And again, here we have padding or other things like CSS, colors that can be used as a token. And for the ones who are more familiar, it even shows you in Flex if it's a space between or not.
If I can ask you really fast, in terms of exporting to a dev team, in your experience, how smooth is that? How much preparation or redlining, or what do you typically have to do when you hand off to a development department to translate or to use the designs you do in Figma?
I would say handoff for me, it's really successful in my project. So I never had this back and forth. So, and I would say that's part of it. It's Figma that does a great job in showing off those properties. But another part is the preparation. So what I normally do is to put components aside, organize them very well, have very good naming conventions, and show them examples of how those look in mocks. So I think it's also up to you the way you do it. But if you do it well, it can go very smoothly. I even had sometimes, I don't know, I never had questions about Figma or the things that I did in there, but more about states that were missing or things that were done wrong product wise, but not in terms of the tool. So I think it can work really good. Although I know there are also some plugins that can help you out with that.
Okay, thanks for that.
The last two, I have one more. It's vector friendly. So I use actually Illustrator for vectors, but since we have this too, I use it a lot for icons. And when I mean vector friendly, just to show you a glimpse, if you can just build your own items, change them, instead of having a fill, putting a color. Maybe that's more fun for the people who are using vectors. So I would say you can also give it a try. It's not as advanced as Illustrator, but it can definitely do its job. And the last one that I'm super excited about all the time is the community. So over here on this tab, or home, if you're in browser, you have this tab that is called community. And you have everything that we've mentioned before. You have groups for illustrations that you can just start using. Wireframe toolkits, this is the one that I've used. Also to show you, you even have UI kits. So if you want to get more into high fidelity, just start using over here. And you also have plugins. Some of the plugins, what do they mean? They help you do your job faster or better in a way. So some of the ones that I use are mostly for placeholders. For example, if we go back in here, you can use a plugin to populate all of those with certain images. And it's the same for text, icons, or just illustrations, and some other plugins that I think are really nice is one that creates charts for you, extracts palettes from an image, or creates arrows for user flows. So I would say that was it. My last point is, let's wrap it up and answer the questions. And if you guys are still with me, some of you, I want you to go in here, click on my name. Don't forget that you can do this. And I'm curious to hear a couple of points. Like, did you learn anything new? Please write it in here. I'm curious to hear it. And would you like to learn something more that we didn't cover in here? And if yes, what would that be? Ta-da!
Very nice. Thank you very much for the presentation. It was wonderful. It's one of the better ones I've seen.
You.
And I've been around a while and I've seen them, a lot of them. So I'll go straight to one of them that is from Kimberly Keene. She asked, do you know why a prototype will not view on a device like an iPhone properly, as in the screen show out of frame? The device frame is set to the iPhone, the prototype device setting to the exact model of iPhone used for viewing. And the prototype option to adjust up, down to quote unquote fit is selected. I know that there is the mirror app to view on mobile, but from what I've found, it's not necessary to use the app to view on mobile. When viewing on desktop, the screens all show in frame. And she apologizes for the long question.
Don't worry about it. So I definitely understand. But actually, normally what I do is to use it on the device. I think the question is, why don't we see the frame itself? I hope she can answer that. And if that's the case, I think that's because it's not available for all the types that we wrote in here. So if we look over here, it's not available for all the devices over here. However, I think you should be able to fix it from those. Not sure. What I normally do if something doesn't look right, I just do a little bit of trial and error, or just try to hit this one with 100%. But probably that might look a little bit too big in the case she mentioned. I think that's my advice. I don't know exactly what would be the problem in here, but you would have to, I would say, do a little bit of trial and error. Okay, we have one question, I think. Oh, why can't I just click on it? It doesn't work for me, Robert. And you're on mute. Still on mute. Sorry for it. Oh, okay, thank you. Got it.
I keep on forgetting I'm muted. Okay, so one of the questions I have for you is that I use Mural and Figma a lot in terms of like their back and forth. One of the things I use Mural for exclusively is their image search. So they do image searches as well as icon searches that are very convenient. But normally if I can't do that same kind of searching in Figma or haven't figured out how. So an example would be is if I would just want to get some simple star icons that are not emojis, or they're not part of the character map that's on my computer, but I want to get like a list of either PNG or SVG files that I can work with. What's an easy way of kind of importing icons? Do I have to go through what you're showing here where I have to install those? Okay.
Yes. So what I normally do is, if it's not custom, I actually use material design icons. It's very simple. I don't have it installed over here because I have it on my work computer, but it's very easy to use. Just to show you a little bit around, you get to use them, or maybe not this one especially, but another one. It's very easy to use because it gives you already a library. And I also use them in my freelance. Like it looks like a panel. So you start searching on it and you can just use them as they are. Change stroke size, color, and so on. So it works as a regular icon. And it's the same for images. It gives you a search engine and it automatically flows to Unsplash or Pixels, whatever plugin you're using.
So another follow-up question is that have you worked with design sprints in Figma, like or even prototyping? Because those are the two areas that I tend to dwell in. But in your experience, have you used Figma for either one of those two processes?
So I stopped the sharing so we can see ourselves. Yes, I have actually used it myself. The way I use it is actually a combination of Miro and Figma. So as I showed you before, for me personally, it's just easier to use Miro for the low fidelity, and then when I want to create something more usable or more up for testing, I go in Figma. But I tend to use a combination of kits, so I don't start designing myself, but instead I use Figma more as a medium to put things together and give it to people. And I still find it a very, very good. I still find it a very, very good option to do it. So.
Okay. Kimberly has a follow-up question. She says, "Why does it show out of the frame on the phone? In other words, I have to scroll down to see what I see on the computer screen without scrolling in the frame."
So let me think this a little bit. I have to scroll down what I see on the computer screen.
You can bring back up your screen if you'd like, so that you don't have to keep on staring at me. I think your presentations are far more photogenic than anything I'd be putting up on this side with the video.
Okay, so wait 1 second. I'm on it. So I'm not sure exactly. It might also be because of the size of the frame. Is that also for Kimberly? I'm asking. But also, if you want, just I didn't mention, feel free also to connect with me. You'll probably also find me on LinkedIn. So if you have any questions about it, like very specifically, like this one seems one that might require to have a look at it over, just feel free to ask me there.
Okay.
So what do we have here? I would like to play around more with plugins. I know, me too. And it's a trap, believe me. There are so many. You might get easily distracted and starting using more. What else do we
So,
have?
Alexandra, I did have a follow-up question in this regard. So you do
Yes.
workshops. You do online and in-person workshops? Well, right now, in-person is kind of not happening for obvious reasons with the pandemic. But how often do you do online workshops for Figma and kind of showcasing what you know?
I normally don't specifically do workshops only for like showing what I know, but I do workshops as I don't know, discovery, product discovery, or just trying out prototyping ideas. And
Right. So
I
like,
use Figma as a medium more.
so experiential, I meant, like not just
Yeah.
necessarily kind of doing presentations, but kind of doing the exercises plus kind of giving some information.
Oh, how often I do that? Every week. And some of them are more formal, but some of them are just informal at work or across colleagues of ours. So I'm working more with people who are not designers. And maybe those are also the points that I kept mentioning, that some of those tools are maybe not the easiest for the people who are not doing design. But I also do this with designers too. And it's always fun to learn new things. And I'm also learning things about Figma myself. So um, yeah.
Okay. Hang on. I wanted to make sure that in the chat, I put in your URL, and I'll have this in the notes as well, so that people can kind of check out your background and what you do.
Yes.
Because I think it's important to know that you host community meetups at Innovating Society. You contribute to a number of organizations, like you write papers. You also actively write. So I checked, and I think the last thing you wrote was in December, correct? Yeah.
Last year. Yes, that was last year actually. Now we are
Okay.
still in December again. So, oh yeah, no, you mean yeah, this year. Okay. You're right. So publications last year and like real publications and online publications this year. Sorry, I kept like doing this remote in-phase thing. So
It's okay. So I guess the last question is like, what do you have planned for 2021? What do you have on your plate in terms of like the first quarter? What are you getting involved with any projects? Do you have any public facing things that you want people to know about? Beyond going to that particular URL I included, what do you want to kind of tell people about?
So I would say in this next phase, I'm working to explore new possibilities. Something that I'm currently working on is to create a mentorship program. So that would be for people who want to get involved in product design and want to get quickly started on it. And I'm thinking to make it very interactive, hands-on, and very personal as well, because I think it's important. And I've already seen in this field some mentorship programs, but I don't know if they're exactly, I mean, I've been through this myself, so I don't know if they're exactly something that I would like. And I'm thinking, I kept receiving questions from people in the past months, like, hey, how can I get started with that? How can I do what you do? So I'm thinking to start sharing that.
Okay. Well, maybe
So
it's something
if
we
there
could
is
talk.
anyone who would like to start, yeah, please.
Well, so maybe it's something that you and I can. Where goes me?
You know where to find me. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it's something we could talk about offline.
Yeah.
In fact, once we shut down this webinar, so don't disconnect yet. It's gonna take just 5 minutes to talk about it. But I'll shut down the live stream to YouTube and kind of end the webinar portion of this, so we go back to the practice session. So Omar says
Perfect.
I'll come on as a panelist.
Yes, finally, please.
All right. Okay, Omar, hang on, so that she can finally meet. So what do you think Omar looks like? No, I won't do that. I already
What
know.
kind of question is this?
All I can tell you is that I know that Omar really likes bacon. He can tell you all about it once he comes over. And that's an inside joke from a previous session.
Okay. I'm curious what you guys talked about if you got up to this answer. I like bacon as well. I even had it this morning.
Let's see. So Omar, I think you're on.
Yeah, I'm here. Hello.
Okay,
Hello.
there you go.
Hi. I like bacon salad, bacon sandwiches, bacon burritos.
Do you like them with tequila? That's the question, though. That's the.
I'm curious to hear an answer for that.
Bacon dipped in tequila.
Oh my God. That's very wild, I would say.
Okay.
No,
Appa, do you want to come over as well on the panelist side so you can kind of say hi to Alexandra? If you don't, you
Yes,
can.
please.
Okay.
If she's still
hang
with
on.
us.
Yeah.
So what do we have here?
Oh, she's already over. I think. No. Wait.
I'm trying to like find my way with the Zoom. How do I get to the Q&A?
there's
The Q&A
Appa
should be
and
at the.
Kimberly.
Yeah. Hang on. I'll go ahead. Kimberly, I think is wanting to stay where she is on the panel on the viewing side. She can speak up if she wants to move, but bring everybody over. So Appa's about to come over as well. She'll make the transition over to the other side, and
Nice.
she is.
I'm so
nearly
happy when
there.
I see the people behind the screens, or actually behind the letter in Figma, if I could call it like this.
Yeah.
I don't know if my video is working. Is it? No,
I
I
don't.
see a gray screen.
Screen is shared, so I'm not sure if you
I'm
can.
not really sure what's going on.
Oh, I can basically do like this, the gallery, and we can see. We should be able to see everybody. Yeah, Appa, for some reason your video is not working.
I think now I can stop sharing, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
There you
better.
go.
So you
Good.
can just imagine what Appa looks like. Just stay in the voice and kind of do it from there.
That was really interesting, though. I like had to run to a work call and run back. I was like, oh, computer.
Your body language in
What
the
time
call was
is
just
it,
kind of
guys,
like.
at your place? By the way, I think this is something I didn't mention. You probably see I have a light bulb in my face, kind of, I mean, part of my face. But I'm in Romania right now. I mean, that's something that I didn't mention. I just realized. So I'm in Europe, somewhere I think maybe more far from where you guys are at right now.
I'm in Prague, so pretty much very close to you, I guess.
Yeah, that's close.
So if you're in Romania,
I'm
it
in
must be
Jalisco,
around.
in Mexico, the land of tequila.
I know, been there. I've been there. I enjoy it. So feel free to send some.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on.
So the time zone over where you are, Alexandra, is probably. It's about. I want to say it's about 8 o'clock your time. Yeah.
No, it's not that late. It's actually just 5:30. So that's
Okay.
okay.
Okay. Good. I wouldn't want to think that this is like it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'd be like, okay.
It's I actually work at the I talk at work a lot with people that are on the West Coast, so that's more difficult because there you have to wake up really early when at my place is around 7, 8, I would say. So it's a bit of a pain. Not for me though. I mean, I enjoy evenings.
Well, evening time, around that time,
Yeah.
the latter part of the day. So Omar, did you have any particular questions or any feedback for Alexandra about what she presented today? Anything you want to kind of touch upon?
No, I mentioned that I use Adobe. I mean, I haven't actually been using. I haven't had a need really to be doing much design or prototyping or mock-ups wireframes lately. So, but I started using Figma like at the same time. Like I started off with Adobe XD. That was like what I was using, kind of volunteering as a UX designer for a mobile app. And that was fun. They did everything on Adobe XD. We put together the design system and everything. But then they went to, I think you couldn't like share your prototypes, or they had like this paid version. They limited it, and I started searching around for other stuff. Somebody got me the Sketch, app for Mac, and that worked really well. But then I updated it, and that was like a bad idea because it messed up with a bunch of things, and I couldn't use it anymore. And then I found Figma, and I really liked it. It's a little bit, I feel like it's really easy, but it's like it's heavier. Like it's more powerful. So I get lost in things like that when things get too it's like the difference between Miro and Mural.
I know, that's a very good comparison.
Yeah, like I really like Miro, but I just like, I can't use it so much internally with my team because we just don't have the need for it. So Mural is just kind of what I've become pretty good at. But Miro I find super cool, and I want to get into it. I'm just like, not that it's that difficult, but I know I'm just going to get lost playing around.
It's
I
like
understand.
Notion. It's like Notion we went through a couple of days ago. Notion is
Yep.
one of those tools where you can
Powerful, like my power toolkit now as a designer comparing to previous years is that I use Notion, Miro, and Figma. So
That's good.
it's just the best combination that kind of worked for me, because in the past I had to use one tool for prototyping, one for animations, like micro animations, one for doing UI, one for wireframes. It was a lot of work. And I think this is also a trend that will start, well, actually it started already, to try to do things cross platforms in one tool and having integrations with one another and so on.
Yeah.
The only
Absolutely.
time you would actually go back to those tools is if you specialized. If there was something
Exactly.
about the tool that you really needed and that was exclusive to that one, then you would probably stay on that platform. It's just how generalistic can you be without sacrificing the quality of the tool or what your options are. That's always the fine line that you have to kind of surf with some of those tools.
Correct.
And out of all the prototyping tools that you have used in the past, which one do you think is like the simplest to use or to learn how to use? Because I'm not really like, I understand how to use it because it's quite intuitive. But when I look in my layers, I just have a bunch of stuff that I don't understand, like on the side that I'm then trying. And that's why when you were saying to like name the layers, I understand, because then I've created a bunch of stuff, but I have no idea which one's what. And so I wanted to kind of understand, like, is there an easier way or an easier tool, like when you're just starting out and you just want to build like very simple prototypes, or is it you just learn the design?
I would say for me, I still find it the easiest Adobe XD. However, the problem you are describing, it might just be everywhere. So you will face the same thing in XD and in Figma as well. But I would say the way Figma evolved, it's actually the best tool to start with. And instead of just looking for adapting the tool, it's just better to work on your own behavior in how you are using that tool. So, you know, I wrote over there, careful with naming your tool, your layers. God, that's so, that can get very complicated.
Yep. That's a huge time suck. So I'm a former Photoshop pro. I used to teach at a university on how to do it. And that was the first introduction to layers that I had. And I went through that same pain where I thought, if I just name all my layers, I'll be so organized and I'll know where everything is. I can group them. And really what happens is that you lock yourself down into a certain layout. So when something changes or you want to grab something and make it wholesale, you kind of upend yourself with all the information that you have to redo. So it's better if you really want to keep track of your layers and do that. The thing I've learned is that you do all of your work, and you can have like 16 billion layers if you want. And then just select the stuff that you know that you're going to keep and lock that down. And then everything else can either be kind of put to the side or somewhere. But then you can go into the labor of actually naming your layers if there's a need to do so. But for the most part these days, you don't need to get that detailed around those layers types unless there's a client need of some type. For the most part, the interface usually speaks for themselves. Really, you're looking under the hood to see how all the wires are kind of crisscrossed. And being a network administrator from the past, you do want your Cat5 cables to be really neat and tied up, but you don't necessarily want them like layered all over the place if you do have a problem. So it's really an edge case for the most part.
And now that you've actually mentioned that, it becomes even more complex when you are doing prototyping, because you saw that you will have to wire everything up. So that can get also easily very complex.
Yeah, that's what happened to us too when we were working on this app. Like we designed all the screens and all the components, and then we had to prototype it all out because we needed to do user tests and validate some the new layouts. And when it came time to that, we had to rename everything because we needed to connect everything, and that becomes like a complete headache. Like sometimes I even go back to Adobe XD and just kind of turn on like where everything goes. And I love looking at that because it was such a pain in the ass. It was so much work.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. So any other comments? Or Alexandra, I thought it was great. That's all I can
Thank
say
you
about
so
it. Just
much.
that, yeah.
Thanks for everyone who joined and made the time to come here. I'm really happy also that I've met you guys and that you participated in my exercises. I also didn't know how that's gonna go, having this Zoom, YouTube, Figma combination. So happy to see you here.
It
I
all
really
came
enjoyed
together.
It was really
All right.
helpful, like really nice. I think the exercises were super helpful, like for me to think about it. I just hope I can find them again because I was trying to like re-find where I was and I couldn't find myself on the Figma page. I don't know if it's just me, but probably is.
I hope it's gonna get easier. The file will be accessible for everyone, so I won't change that. You can definitely find it in there. I don't plan to delete it or with it whatsoever. So, and you can also just duplicate it yourself right away, so you have your own copy.
Kimberly Keene, who's hanging out on the attendee side, had one last question she wanted to kind of
Hi,
submit
sorry.
before everything left.
Hey,
Can you hear me? Well, sorry, really quick. I'll try to be quick. I wanted to say that the documentation. So when I was looking for the solution, I don't want to get into my specific example and take everyone's time, but maybe I'll try to connect with you. Do you
Yes.
usually? So I find obviously a lot of help through the Figma community, like through their blog. But for this specific thing, it's like, I mean, there's Stack Overflow. There's a million places you can find Reddit. Do you have a specific place to look for more tutorial help or like specific questions that are maybe a better source if it's like a problem you're having, or it seems like maybe, I don't know, like not an error, but that you're not being able to actually show something properly, like prototype? Is there?
Yeah. I'm using Slack communities. So I joined some of them. They are actually not really Figma related, but more UX or design related. So if I have any questions like that, I can also just send you out some of those. I refer there, and there is certainly someone that knows an answer to it. But that's a good question. Normally, I just get it resolved among designers because I'm just thinking that they might experience it in the past. And also Facebook groups. I'm also in some Facebook groups. They're local though, for local designers in my country, and they are also very helpful. So I'm pretty sure you can also find something like that close to where you are.
Okay. I might be interested in your mentorship, so I'll check out your
Yay!
site for something. Yeah, thank you. And
I
also,
actually don't have any information about that in there because I'm still working on it. But please also feel free, everyone in here, to connect with me, and I will keep you updated. I will definitely post something on LinkedIn when I have a final state of it.
And that's
Happy
what I
to
want
hear
to talk
it.
to you about offline, actually. Sorry, I didn't
And
mean to
Kimberly, I
interrupt.
think I interrupted. I also interrupted you. You had one more thing probably to say, or not?
oh, me.
I
No,
think
no,
she just
no.
said yay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks very
Thank
much.
you. Thanks
And
for
I was
coming.
just saying, that's what I want to talk to you offline about. It's like I wanted to kind of get some details about that before all this kind of broke down, but I wanted to get the
I'm not
webinar
gonna
kind of.
disappear.
No, I'm just saying. Well, I'll put it out there in advance. So, so Kimberly and Omar and Appa, thank you very much for attending and being part of this. Like Alexandra has mentioned, she's going to plan on kind of sharing the Figma link, and I can do the same. So that if you want to follow up and take a look at some of the exercises, you can. For those of you in the future, in the not so distant future, that watch this on YouTube or watch the replay that we post this up, thank you for scanning and watching this as well. Again, in the live chat on YouTube as well as Zoom, I've included Alexandra's link to her personal website, and you can also find her on LinkedIn if you just do a search for her name. Do reach out to her if you have any interest in Figma or if you just want to connect the network. So Alexandra, thank you very much for coming to the GVDS community of practice on the Figma walkthrough. It was fantastic, and stay on. We'll talk in a bit. But for everyone else, thank you for attending. Enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are, and hopefully we'll see you next time. All right.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
again for
you.
being here.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.